is stepping into that role. We're so grateful, and I'm waiting for the thumbs up from him. So glad you're all here. Okay, I've got the thumbs up. I will now call the October 6th, 2022 meeting of the Oak Ridge Town Council to order. I'm so glad you're all here tonight, and welcome to anyone watching via our YouTube live stream. We will start with the invocation, and I'd like to invite Pastor Mike Carr of Oak Ridge United Methodist Church forward to give the invocation. Please rise.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we thank you so much for the glory of this day, for the beautiful weather outside, and all the activities that are going on here in our beautiful community. Lord, we ask that you would continue to bless this community so we can be a blessing for others. We also take a moment to pray for those down in Florida and those that have faced this terrible devastation of a hurricane as they begin to pick up the pieces. May we find ways to pull together our resources and maybe go down and help to those who are in need so that they know that we as a country care for others and that we're there to lean on each other in times of heartache and tragedy. We ask that you would continue to bless our mayor and our council, bless them with wisdom and guidance in the choices and decisions that they make for the betterment of this community. May we find ways to meet each other on common ground and to see each other as our citizens and brothers and sisters. We ask that you would continue to lead us and to guide us, and so that we can be better people. We pray all these things in God's holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Carr. I'd now like to invite the Scouts of Troop 600 and 219 who are here tonight to lead us in the pledge.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for being here tonight. We'll now move to item 2, approval of our agenda. Is there a motion, Council?
I make a motion we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries and the agenda is approved. We'll now move to approval of the minutes from our September 1st, 2022 regular meeting. Council, you've had the opportunity to review the draft. Is there a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the minutes for September 1st, 2022 regular meeting.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries and the minutes are approved. Thank you. We now move to item 4, resolutions, proclamations, and announcements. I have one announcement tonight, and it's a big one. Our November 3rd meeting will not be held here because early voting will be being held in these chambers. So the pastor and church staff of the Oak Ridge First Baptist Church, that's the one down on 150 across from the Methodist Church, they have graciously agreed to host our meeting in the building behind the church, which is their fellowship hall, Sandra? Mm-hmm. Family Life Center. And they have been just wonderful helping us work out AV issues so that hopefully we can produce our live stream and have mics and be all professional in that alternate location. So I hope people will be able to join us there. Don't come here unless you want to vote. We'll now move to item number 5, a report from the Guilford County Sheriff's Office. Thanks for being here tonight. You're great. You're here right in time.
Corporal Swearingen, it's good to see everybody again. For the month of September, we have answered 191 calls for service in the town limits of Oak Ridge. 16 of those calls actually did result in reports. Highlight a couple of things. We have experienced a few car B&Es between September 4th and September 5th in the Linville Oaks neighborhood in Oak Ridge. We're asking residents again, please don't leave anything valuable in your cars or anything where somebody could look in and see. Please keep your cars locked. And then we're also encouraging residents to, if you're able to do so, perhaps invest in security cameras like a Ring doorbell camera, something like that, so if something does happen, we can have some video evidence to help prosecute whoever is involved. We are also encouraging residents to follow the sheriff's office on the next door and the neighbors by ring. We're going to start posting some specific information to keep residents informed a little bit better about what's going on in their neighborhoods through the sheriff's office, so we're encouraging people, if they're able to do so, to please follow us.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hey, been some reports of speeding over in Tarleton Drive, particularly during the periods where folks are bringing their kids into school. And apparently, I guess some of the, from what I understand, some folks do run a little bit late, and they've been speeding through there. And so I think that it might be a good idea, if it's, practicable, to have an officer in there at that.
Is it generally during the earlier morning hours, or is school itself?
I'm not particularly
It's school
sure on
start
that. It's during the
time,
school.
So it's,
Yeah.
what is that, 7:30 to 8? And then the drop-off is not as bad. I mean, the
Yeah.
pickup at the end of the day is not as bad. But the school, if you call the school, they'll tell you the exact times.
Yeah, I think, because I think it might be helpful to have a law enforcement presence, help keep them at least within the speed limit.
I will make sure that gets passed along. Thank you so much for bringing it to my attention.
Great.
Thank you for being here.
And thank you.
Corporal Swearingen. And let's see, it looks like we'll now move to the report from the Oak Ridge Fire Department. It looks like we have the chief here. We invite you forward to give that report. Thanks for being here.
All right, so for last month, we did a total of 78 calls, 33 of those being emergency medical calls, 6 vehicle accidents. We responded to 1 building fire. For training hours, we got a total of 847. We did have 3 of our full-time staff complete a North Carolina driver operator class. That's a 130-hour class. A lot of that time they went on their off-duty. So there's quite a lot of dedication, especially with the new staff. Also, don't forget the barbecue is this Saturday. We'll start doing drive-through selling at 9 a.m. I would say get there early. We tend to sell out very quickly. We did have to raise the price to $9 a pound. We're still doing the sauce for $3 a pound. So as far as the storm we just had, we ran 9 calls, which is kind of light for an event like that. Usually ice storms, a major storm like we just had, we run typically maybe 20 calls or more. That's trees down. But what we did notice, we had a lot of power lines down, and they were going across the roadways. This was due to a tree falling on the line. The tree might not be blocking the roadway. So we did the best we could at putting up cones, fire line tape on both sides of the hazard. What we noticed, if a crew went back an hour or so later to check, people had moved those barriers and drove across. At some points, those lines were locked. Now, just to understand, we don't put those out just for your inconvenience. They are there for a good reason. So just please pass it on if you see a barrier like that. Take a few minutes and turn around and find another way.
Thank you. That sounds really important.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
is there any questions from anyone?
I thought you did a good job during that storm.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you
Thank
all.
you.
Thanks for being here. We will now move to item 7, the town manager's report, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Bruce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. 3 items for you this evening. The first is to consider approval of the reappointment of Larry Stafford as the ETJ South representative to the Planning and Zoning Board.
Thank you. So, council, in accordance with our policy regarding standing boards and committees, and based on a consensus vote of council before this meeting, consideration of this reappointment is on our agenda tonight. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we reappoint Larry Stafford as the ETJ South Representative to Planning and Zoning Board.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries, and Larry Stafford is reappointed. We thank Mr. Stafford for his continued service. Back to you.
He's very dedicated.
He is,
He's done a great job.
as so many of our committee members are.
Yes.
For the second and third items, I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant Town Manager and Town Clerk, Sandra Smith.
Thank you. First is a report on the Veterans Honor Green. The Special Events Committee is doing an amazing job raising money. And as you know, the council has agreed to match the funds that they have raised. Prior to this, they had raised $123,844.74. In the quarter that just ended in September, they raised an additional $11,069.48. And with council's permission, you would also match that same amount, $11,069.48. If you agree to do that and agree to ask our finance officer to move that over to the restricted fund, their total will be $145,983.70. So I just asked council if you would agree to match the $11,069.48 and then move that amount and the match of the same amount over to the restricted fund.
You know, and I think we're not hearing you very well. You might pull your microphone closer. At least people in the back row aren't.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Council, what is your pleasure on this matter?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we move $11,069.48 from restricted fund, is it?
To the restricted
To
fund.
the restricted fund for the Veterans Honor Green.
And the match?
And the match of $11,069.48.
I'll second that.
The motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Just a question. How much have we matched so far this year? Do you know?
Well, this fiscal year, this will be about $34,000, which is what council had agreed to match. After this, we have the $50,000 from the state. The council had agreed to match that amount as well.
Okay, so we're just about done with our matching then.
Well, the matching will continue with the
The matching will
50,000.
continue
Right.
with the 50,000.
Yeah.
Oh, but what I'm saying, our 34, we're pretty
Yes.
much done with.
For this year.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
And one other question, how close are we to building?
The goal is to get to 200,000, and I'm sure
Okay,
Ms.
so,
Dumachowski can report on this
Okay.
during committee reports.
well, that's fine, then we're getting close.
We are getting close.
We are getting close.
So the motion has been made and seconded, right?
Yeah.
I got a little distracted there. Is there any further discussion?
Nope.
If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries and the proposed financial actions are approved.
Thank you. The next item is regarding the records retention schedule. In 2019, the council approved the new schedule that came from the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. They have now added to that some new standards. So with council's permission, you would add the new standards and approve those. Those would be in addition to the standards that we currently have. And these, several of the standards do not apply to us at all, things such as animal control, airport authority, that kind of thing, but there are several that do apply to us. In addition, after that, we also have the American Rescue Plan funds, and we have to adopt a special retention policy for that, and basically that is you keep everything for 5 years. Council, I would like for you to be aware that the clerk's office never gets rid of any records unless we come to you and ask permission, can we get rid of this specific record? And to this point, we have thankfully had plenty of storage room, and we have not gotten rid of much of anything. So we would continue to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Council, is there a motion on this matter?
Just a quick question.
Let's save it for discussion.
Well, are we making two motions here, or one motion
You
for
can
two things?
make it together as one motion, I think is fine.
Okay. So, Madam Mayor, I make a motion that, that we adopt the record retention schedules and the record retention policy document created or maintained pursuant to the American Rescue Plan or slash CSLFRF award.
That's a mouthful.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Any questions?
No.
If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries, and the schedule and policies are approved. Thank you, Mr. Bruce, and thank you, Ms. Smith. Well, are there any other items that you
No
have?
other items tonight.
Okay. Great. We'll now go on to item 8, and we'll come right back. Actually, we're going to go to the Water Advisory Committee. Do you have any introduction for that, or should I just invite? We have the Vice Chair of the Water Advisory Committee, Mr. Brian Hall, here to offer a recommendation developed by the Water Advisory Committee.
Mayor, members of the council, nice to see you guys. Chairman couldn't be here tonight, so you got the B team. I'll do the best I can. After our discussion in the committee, in a review of the town's goals for the municipal water system and the many issues that are surrounding those goals, the committee recommended, voted, and approved for our recommendation to the town council to request a written proposal from Wooten to provide engineering services for a couple of things. One, a water tank that would be located behind the fire station, provide sufficient pressure for the ultimate water system. Two, engineering to evaluate the water main connection from that tank over to the Winston-Salem Forsyth City County Utilities system down 150. Part of the scope of work would include securing a letter of commitment from Forsyth City County Utilities to provide the water to the town, as well as guidance on the most appropriate order in which to proceed through this process. The committee believes that it's an important next step in this continual press towards a public water supply and system that would service our town. Happy to answer any questions you have.
So you're asking us to...
Thank you. Before we move to a motion, since we have Mr. Hall here, we can open it up for questions from council before we proceed to a motion.
Okay, so the motion is to, I make a motion that...
She said you can ask
I'm
questions
asking if
first.
anyone has questions.
You can ask questions first.
Okay. So what you're asking us to do tonight, make a motion to request the engineering be, move forward on the engineering for the water tank, correct?
Yes, and
And to start exploring engineer options for trunk line to come in from Forsyth or any particular...
that's right.
That's
For
it.
the water system, the supply
Okay.
of the water, the source of the water, is critical
Right.
to any water system.
I understand that. I just wanted to make sure
It's both,
that's both. Okay.
tank and connection to the supply.
Are
And,
there other questions, council, about the substance instead of
Yeah, right.
about the motion?
okay.
I have several. Personally, I would have liked to have had a lot more background on the justification for this, the need is gonna fulfill. Like, for example, how often will the fire department actually use the tank?
Wasn't the fire chief here? Maybe he can answer that.
Well, what I'm saying is, I've asked this question of members of.
Why don't you
what-
save that for the discussion? Maybe I'm
That's fine.
confusing things.
Well, what I'm worried, what I'm concerned about is just the justification for this. And if we can do that after the motion, before the motion, it's just.
Yeah, we'll do it afterwards.
That's fine.
As
That's
part
fine.
of discussion.
That's fine.
But if you have anything you'd like to add to that, Brian,
Okay.
and then we'll
I
open
can
it up.
certainly speak from my perspective of being on the committee and as we've evaluated. Justification for the system, there's a couple. One, water's necessary for life. Getting a reliable source of water into this town is really important. We say we have groundwater. I think there's plenty of people in the town that would say that's unreliable. I think the town's even experienced its unreliability in drilling wells across the street.
Yep.
Okay, so a reliable source of water, the closest one from the previous studies that have been done, is Winston-Salem Forsyth City County Utilities. Stokesdale has that connection. So they were 20 years ahead of us as it relates to water. Fire protection, clearly a reliable source of water under pressure provides water to the fire trucks, certainly, but also to the sprinkler systems that exist in some of our bigger buildings in town. That includes the commercial, some of the houses of worship that are here, the school system. Thirdly, the public availability to that water for consumption for life is awesome. That's clearly a benefit, and those that have had water wells go dry or have to drill a new well, or heaven forbid, have to drill 3 wells, the access to a public water supply becomes really important. Becomes a differentiator for our town, becomes critical for the future success of the people that live here. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Other questions for Mr. Hall?
I think I know my answer, but when we're talking about, and I agree with the tank, because I know that the water sources for fire suppression have been shrinking, over the 22 years that I've been here. In the interim, because we have funding that we can devote to the tank, it's going to be a much larger, more long-term project in terms of getting the trunk line in terms of cost and time. Is it my understanding that we have capacity at the well that we'll be using for the park, that we could slowly fill the tank and keep it until we can provide that trunk line?
Yeah, I'll answer a couple of your questions there.
Yes,
Yes,
that
yes is the short answer.
The short answer is yes.
The short answer is yes. The longer-term answer is that I don't know that there's any town that overnight's gonna go from no water system to a full water system.
Exactly.
And so taking reasonable stair steps as we can, as you guys decide if we can afford it, to me is prudent.
Yep.
Stokesdale didn't get their system overnight, but they have a nice water tower that pressurizes it. So any step we can take from going from where we are to a full water system, in my opinion, is a prudent step that we should take.
And part of what you're asking is for them to give you the phasing or the process and the order of operations, I will say.
Help us create a schedule. Tell us what's most important to
Yes.
have first, second, third.
Exactly.
We know it's good to have a tank. We know it's good to hook up to Winston-Salem Forsyth City County Utilities. Tell us how to spend the money that you guys have and you can allocate in a way that makes sense.
Okay.
Just one more question. Okay, so really a 3-part. So we're moving forward on the water tank,
Yes, sir.
engineering options for a trunk line,
Yes, sir.
and letter of intent. Is that the right?
I think those are the 3 pieces.
Those are your
But
3 pieces here.
In our view, in the view of the committee, those 3 are all important to work together.
Yes, I
Because it's great to have
understand.
a trunk line and it's great to have a tower, but if Winston-Salem Forsyth City
Oh, no,
County
no,
said
I'm
we're
not-
not filling it up, it ain't any good.
Buddy, I'm on your side. I'm not, I'm
just saying.
I'm just
Yeah, they're
making
all
sure I
3
have the
together.
3 moving
Yes, sir.
parts here.
Right.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I believe it's time for us to make a motion.
It is.
Can I
Hold-
make
hold
the
on,
motion,
one-
George?
Hold on one moment. I wanted to have the chance for council to ask Mr. Hall questions, and I want to thank you
Thank you.
for your time. And we also have Spencer, who's the council liaison, And I think he's very prepared to make the motion.
Well, that, either way, I mean,
Yeah.
that's fine, let's just
But,
get her done.
Thank you, Mr. Hall, because I wanted to have that opportunity, because once we're discussing, it's more difficult to bring him up.
Right.
Thank you. So now I'll invite a motion.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I would like to move that Town Council request a proposal from the Wooten Company or similar consulting engineering firm to provide engineering services for a 250,000-gallon elevated tank, which will be located behind the Oak Ridge Fire Department, and for a water main to connect the tank to Winston-Salem Forsyth water supply at the county line. The scope of work would include securing a letter of commitment from Winston-Salem Forsyth to provide water to the town, and guidance as to the appropriate order of construction for us to proceed.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. I will now open it to discussion, starting with Councilman Sullivan, who made the motion.
Yeah. I've been involved in this for a long time, since 2005, as a matter of fact, in working towards a municipal water system for the town. And I can't tell you how excited I am for us to be at this point. The important thing to note is that we have been very fortunate in securing 2 grants that will more than cover the estimated cost of the elevated tank, and will give us at least a partial funding for that water line. And we have received indications from the state level that they would look favorably upon helping us out to completely fund that water line. But the first step is that tank. That shows our commitment, and it provides us a way to provide water to not only the park, but to the fire department off of the new well that we have drilled in the park. As Mr. Hall has indicated, there is sufficient water in that well to fill that tank to adequately supply the park for all its needs, and to provide water not only to fill the tankers for the fire department, but for their new training facility, where they would have pressurized water supply right there and would not have to use the tank for training. I mean, their tankers or the engines for training, unless they chose to do so. So I'm very much in favor of this.
Thank you. I'll continue with you, Councilman McClellan.
Well, why don't we go with just go in the road?
Going to you.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry.
Well, I have to, as with Spencer, I think, Spencer, we've both been working on this for a while, haven't we? And Spencer's, of course, beats me by a couple of years. But this is something that is very needed. You know, by going ahead with the water tank, that will help in terms of fire suppression. It will also help to reduce homeowners insurance, because as with the ratings at the fire department go up, the insurance comes down a little bit. So that's a good thing. And plus, we have to think about the future, you know, not just about the immediacy. Right now, the immediacy is fire suppression. But in the long term, there will come a point in time where that trunk line, whether it's from the Forsyth County or any other place, will come into play as our municipality continues to grow. And I think that you know, a dependable source of water is essential for the long-term interests of our town. I mean, this is where leadership comes in. And yes, we do have good connections with our state. I know the one thing I can tell you that the legislature likes about and I can say this from personal conversation, what they really like about our plan is that we actually show up with a plan. It's not just a wish list. They can tell that our folks have given this a lot of thought, and as a result, we've received very favorable attention from the legislature, and that's not only true just in terms of the majority caucus, the Republicans, but also the relationships that we've built with our Democratic caucus friends. So that if you ever look at those things, those votes are typically unanimous, bipartisan. And so the people know this is important. I'm proud to support it, and we're going to get her done.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Kinnaman.
My main concern is that we weren't presented with a presentation showing you the options that you went through and why you decided not to take those options. We've talked about in the past about having tanks located throughout the town with wells. I'm not saying it's a good idea, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but that was something that was talked about. We've talked about other approaches, and whenever I'm looking at a project, I think it's important to look at the pros and cons of all the things. We're just hearing what you want us to do. I would have appreciated it, like I said, in the business world, I would have expected a pros and cons of all the different solutions and why you went with the solution you came in. I didn't hear that tonight. I didn't hear why this solution is better than the other solutions. And one of the leading questions I ask, and this is a question I have asked previously of members of I know I talked to George about it, was how often does the fire department really need this water? So I mean, the question there is, I would expect that the water committee would know the answer to that, not to ask the fire chief while he was here.
I think the answer is hopefully never.
Excuse me?
Hopefully never.
I understand all that stuff, but they use it. He had one firehouse. Look,
He did say 3 to 4 times a month
I understand it. So okay.
during our water meeting. If he, that's what the chief, no, I'm sorry, that's what the chief said.
Okay, guys. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. What I'm saying is, I have been an enthusiastic supporter of getting a municipal water system from the get-go. I was talking about community wells long before anyone else thought it was a good idea, okay? Initially, people told me it wasn't feasible, it wasn't practical, and now we're doing community wells. People said that we didn't have water underneath us. We have water underneath us. I've lived in places where wells are used to supply water. I've lived in places where surface water, but I also lived in places where surface water is not that dependable. When I first moved here, several of the lakes that were were water supplies had grass growing in them. So neither of them are necessarily any more dependable than the other. But what I'm concerned about is that I haven't heard the process that went into why this is the right solution. I'm not against it, okay? But I'm also talking about the fact that we have no leverage, legal leverage, to force someone to connect to the water system. So when we run a pipe in here and it fills that tower, we potentially could have just the ability to provide water to the fire department, which is a noble cause. But the question is, how often do they need the water? And if all we have is a tank there, we could possibly have a much smaller tank that would fill the fire department's needs if we can't hook it up for water. So what I'm also concerned about is what's the plan because I would be very much in favor of the water line from the county if we knew along the way we had real customers for that water. And the other question is, how much is it going to cost us to maintain that tower every year? The tower is going to have to be cleaned once in a while. It's going to have to be painted every once in a while. And if we run a line over from there, so that's where I'm really struggling with a lot of this is that I haven't heard enough nuts and bolts about this to say this is something we should do right now, because like I said, I didn't hear the pros and cons of all the other solutions. You guys have been working on this for months, but you're trying to ask me for a decision in 5 minutes, and you haven't taken me along for the ride. I've heard some things, but like I said, I haven't heard why did this solution win out over multiple tanks around town? Why did this solution win out over having a smaller tank that fills the fact that the fire department needs water 2 or 3 times a month? And they still have to come running back here, so it's not like there's fire hydrants all over the place. So it's just making water a little bit easier because they still could run down to Greensboro to a fire hydrant and fill up there. So how does this win out over that? We're going to have to pay for it. We're not going to ask for a water. So that's where I'm struggling. I'm struggling with the fact that you didn't take me along for the ride. You didn't come in here and present how you got to this decision. You're asking me for the decision, but you didn't tell me why. And like I said, you know, you don't have, it doesn't sound like you have hard numbers on how often the fire department would need this in an emergency situation, how often they would need it in a training situation, how often they would need it just to refill things, and then also, what's your plan to get people to hook up along the way? Like I said, I would expect that you know, before we run that pipe, we'd say, well, who's going to, because otherwise, we're just going to pay for a static tower that's going to be used 2 or 3 times a month and not really change the amount of water that the fire department really has available. Because like I said, they either have to run back to the fire department and fill up, or they run down to a hydrant in Greensboro or a hydrant up in Stokesdale. And so I don't know how this buys us a dramatic change in the ability of the fire department to provide protection. You know, like I said, I want a water system, but like I said, I want to know how you're going to get from this tower to a water system, and I haven't seen that. So I don't know who wants to answer that.
Would you like to ask, are you asking some of those questions of Mr. Hall?
Whoever
or
wast to
should we-
feel best, who feels best to answer it.
Why
And
don't
like I
you
said,
give-
you know, and like I said, I'll be very blunt. I don't want the platitudes. I'd like some numbers and figures. I understand. I'm
Respectfully.
Spencer can back me up. I've been a very enthusiastic supporter of making
Okay,
water
well, let's,
available.
let's
Hang
let the
on,
guy
hang
answer
on.
the question.
I just want to offer some direction. I'd like to give you a chance to respond to the questions you heard, and then we need to hear from the council members who have not spoken yet, and then we can start a discussion amongst ourselves
Okay.
where Spencer can weigh in again with his significant knowledge of this. But feel free to answer some of the questions posed.
Great questions. Love them. Our recommendation is for a proposal for engineering. Typically, design engineering comes as we investigate the answers to all the questions you're asking. I think they're great questions. We should ask them. We should know the math. We're recommending a proposal to go get some engineers, help us answer your questions.
But you considered other options, and then, like I said, I haven't heard why those options were discarded.
I'm not sure that we have. Our options were hire an engineer or not hire an engineer.
No,
We're asking you to hire an engineer.
No, no, I heard that there was talk about putting tanks around town and
We've talked
connecting.
about that. I think we need some engineering help to look at that.
But what I'm saying, that's not the proposal you're putting forward to me. You're putting a proposal that was going to be one tank and a line from the county. You know.
No, we're not buying the tank, we're not buying the line. We're asking for an engineering proposal. We want to
No,
hire
I
an
understand
engineer
that.
to help us answer your questions.
Okay, let's move to council discussion. Thank you.
Martha didn't have a chance
Yeah,
yet.
I'm moving to her. Thank you. Councilwoman Pittman.
Well, I'll just scratch what I was going to say. I think however we get there, because even, 4 or 5 years ago, when I started getting very involved in all aspects of life and community in Oak Ridge, water has been at the top of the list in terms of need, in terms of debate about that need, depending on whether you were someone with a good well or someone with a poor well, like I have. And I thought that a big part of our responsibility as a municipality and as a council is to not only meet the needs that we hear on a daily basis from our constituents, but also the plan for the future. I know that the study was done with Wooten that gave us a lot of different options. That study was done after the regional water system study was done. So I think we have studied it. I don't know the answers to your questions. I'm sure that somewhere somebody does.
That's why you
Because
do an
it has been studied and studied. I'm not an engineer. So therefore, I rely on people who do engineering. But I do think it's important that we continue to take those incremental steps towards municipal water, because I think one of our biggest responsibility is the safety and well-being of our residents now and in the future. And one of the statements that Brian made is that water is necessary. Clean water is necessary for life. And for our community to thrive, it just takes like one disaster And I think we need options. I think as we develop as a nation, we already see places in the country in which there are, you know, lots and lots of conflict over water and source. And I think it's only smart for us to start working towards finding the long-term solutions, keeping our options open, and requesting the study, to me, is the next step. And if part of what we want to know from this study relates to the usage and potential future usage, then, you know, we make that a part of the conversation. I would be very surprised, knowing the members of this committee, if the discussions haven't been had, just maybe we haven't heard it.
Thank you. And I do want to say there were vigorous discussions on a lot of these issues. And I think I'll let Councilman Sullivan speak to this, but we had an opportunity because we found a high-performing well that could fill this water tank, and we have money from the state that expires in June. And we still have the option, all of the options that were in the Wooten report that I know all of you have received.
Yep.
That's the basis of the options that the Water Committee has reviewed. And those do include storage tanks, either groundwater, it could be, and we talked about that at the last meeting, you know, one of the next steps could be doing those off-site groundwater tanks. Having a tank at the fire department is an enormous upgrade for their ability to quickly fill up their tanks, because it's about the quickest way you can do it. The chief has been an important part of these discussions, and we did get into a lot of details. I'll leave that to Councilman Sullivan, but I do think that this is one of those, we want the whole Megillah, right? We want it someday, but we can't ever get it any day unless we take the first steps.
Absolutely.
This is a big step. And we did talk about whether to do a feasibility study, and we said, well, we probably can't get water lines in here for 5 or 6 more years, so an actual feasibility study about like which residents we could hook up, although we did talk about different tiers, and Brian referred to that, you know, commercial, places with sprinklers. There are lots, I think we can come up with some, we've already talked about priorities of where service could go. But it's difficult to get any hard and fast feasibility study at this point when we're years out from serving those people. And I'll now turn it over to Councilman Sullivan if you want to also respond to those issues.
I will try to be brief. The foundation of our discussions has revolved around what was called the fire suppression study that was done by the Wooten Company. And yes, one of its goals was to enhance our fire suppression capabilities. But that study was also conducted with the parallel goal of whatever we built to support the fire department would also provide the backbone of a municipal water system. Any mains that we ran for hydrants would also support potable drinking water for our citizens. If our only goal was fire suppression, then yes, the smaller tanks that Jim's talking about would suffice. And in fact, I actually asked Chief Gibson, because we are talking about something that's going to take 10, 20 years to develop. And I've already had one discussion with Chief Gibson that as an interim measure, were there certain critical points where we could put a smaller tank that would be initially filled by a tanker and then maintained as it's drawn down by the tanker the fire department has. So we may well end up with some of these smaller tanks, Jim, to answer your question in that regard. But the primary goal is a municipal water system. And part of this motion for the engineering company that we hire is to develop the order in which we should proceed as funds become available. so that we can
But
build
I'm
the
hearing that-
system out.
But I'm hearing that basically what the study's gonna give back is just engineering on a pipe from the county, the adjacent county, and the tank, that it's not looking at, what are the other options that we should consider? And like I said, and this may be the right solution, but I'm saying, if I'm misreading the request, but you're requesting them to do an engineering study to basically say, what's the engineering to put a tank up, and what's the engineering to bring a pipe in? And I'm not hearing any of the other stuff you're talking about.
What's the order in which we should proceed with what's in the fire suppression study and ultimately building out a system for the town? Yes, it's all part of that.
It's all there.
Of that study.
That's
It's all
not what I
part of
heard,
that
that's not what I
study.
heard in the motion, though. The motion was tank and a pipe from the other county.
No, I made a motion that at the end of the motion said guidance on the appropriate order in which we should proceed to develop a water system. That was part of my motion.
I understand that, but basically, like I said, I think there should be more details on what, to give them a broader view of things, because to me, should the pipe even be the first thing, one of the main things we worry about? If we can fill the tank with water, can we meet the needs of a small municipal water system?
No. I
Until
can answer that question right now, no.
we couldn't fill the need for one, like 12 Oaks?
No, we could not.
Now
Why
with-
not?
There's not enough water there.
How many gallons is gonna be in the tank? I think you need, what, 3 days worth of water?
Well, remember
The
that the tank
state
is,
has a requirement that you have, any well that you use has to deliver, they say 0.56. In reality, the engineers always design around 1 GPM per residence.
Okay, all right, then
Okay,
that's fine. I
that-
understand that part, but I'm
So,
saying,
well, you have to do that. It doesn't matter what the tank will hold.
I understand, okay, that's clear, but like I said, I'm just concerned that, like I said, I'm not opposed to this. I'm just concerned that we haven't gone through the due diligence of considering why this is the right choice. You know, like I said, normally I would have expected, hey, this is how we got here. You guys have been living this for years, so you're comfortable with this proposal. But in 5 minutes, you're expecting me to be comfortable with this proposal, and I haven't heard the pros and cons of what are the, you know, like I said, I would have expected there would have been some idea of how much it's going to cost to maintain this tower, be some idea of what it's going to cost to maintain the pipe coming into town, because the initial cost is clear. It's $8 million, let's say, to bring the pipe over here and build the tower totally. I don't know what it is exactly, but $8 million is a number I've heard, but it may not be even right. But then what's the annual cost of maintaining that every year when we're going to have to pay for it? We're not going to ask for our ratepayers to pay for it because they're not hooked up to it. So the town's going to have to pay for that every year. So it's going to be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, and the fire department's you know, benefiting it. And that's why, like I said, I'm struggling with this, that the justification hasn't been made. You guys are comfortable with it. You've lived with this for months.
I'm comfortable with it. You're not
well,
pointing to me.
maybe
So
one of
you've been
the,
involved with the
maybe
committees.
one of the points we could make, I think maintenance is certainly a normal and reasonable thing to include in the study that we request. And I just want to make one clarification. I know the committee recommended that we ask it of Wooten because we have a great working relationship with them.
Yep.
But given that this initial study will probably be pretty costly, we will likely, very likely, have to bid it out. So Wooten or another qualified engineering firm.
Madam Mayor, the motion's been made properly second. Let's go ahead and let's call it.
I'm not finished discussing.
You're not, well, fine. This is a point where you keep saying that you're for something, but yet you're hesitant to vote for it. It's time to get things, let's get things moving forward.
But I haven't heard much in the way of justification to my questions.
Well, I think that you'll find
And
that.
I understand you
that's
want to
what-
win.
that-
I understand you want to win.
Win what? The
Okay,
town wins.
Okay, let's
And,
have some order here.
I apologize.
You've asked a lot of questions. I think many of them were answered in Brian's original presentation. Spencer is the other most knowledgeable person here. Would you like to answer any more of Jim's questions? And I think since you've posed the questions, I think we can address maintenance, that's my answer to one of your questions, as part of the study. Would you think that's accurate,
And
Mr.
we
Bruce?
have
Yes.
already had discussions with Horton about maintenance. We've already talked about that, Jim.
But you
But we
haven't
could
shared
get
that
But
with me.
again, that's part of the study.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're not voting on building the tower, we're voting on a study
well, I think,
and getting the engineering done so that we could be prepared to do it if we choose to.
I'm just concerned that what the directions the engineering companies can have is a little too leading in that basically we're saying it's almost a foregone conclusion we want a pipe from Forsyth County.
I think that isn't true. I mean,
No.
I think the Water Committee does think that's the right way to go, but I think this engineering study is going to provide us with the information that will allow us to say, whoa, we can't do that, or yes, we can. And that makes sense.
See, I think that's going to be what answers your questions once we get the studies in.
I have a question
Yes.
Yeah.
for Mr. Bruce. Procedurally, we would be, tonight, if we do what we've been requested to do, we would be approving the exploration of asking for the engineering study for all the points that Mr. Sullivan, Councilman Sullivan, brought up. But the actual language of the request for if it goes to bid or whatever, has not been set. And that, again, would come back before us if it is something to be bid. Once the proposal for the work, the scope of the engineering study that we want done, would that come back to council? Once that's developed by the Water Committee and you and Mr. Thomas?
It can if you would like it to. With the motion that you'd be making tonight, if you did make the motion, we would craft a request for qualifications and ask engineering firms to submit qualifications to do the work. I would expect the Water Advisory Committee would probably review those qualifications and make a recommendation to council, excuse me, and make a recommendation to council to approve entering into a contract with the most qualified firm. If you want another step in there and to review the request for qualifications before it is advertised, you can certainly do that.
But the contract would come back to us.
The contract would definitely come back to you.
The contract would come back to us that would be very clear and more expansive than just the 3 bullet items.
That's correct. Oh, yes.
It would lay out in great detail the scope of the work that we are asking them to do.
That's correct.
So we do have eyes on it again. It isn't like green light.
Yes, before we enter into a contract with that firm, you would have a chance to review precisely what their charge is.
And there would be opportunity if one of us should choose to interact with members of the Water Committee to say, well, we'd like this to be considered in the scope, or we don't,
Certainly.
we'd like to have this information included when we get a report or whatever.
That's correct.
Thank you. Council, understanding that we could continue discussing this obviously for quite a while, we do have a motion on the floor. Is there any other key discussion that we need to make?
Nope.
Without repeating previous points. All right, we will proceed. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries, and the recommendation from the Water Advisory Committee is approved. Thank you for the good discussion.
Good job.
We'll now move to item number B, and I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Bruce.
Thank you. This is a request to approve a proposal from Hill Studio to assist the town of Oak Ridge in bidding the Farmhouse Community Center for construction contracts. The proposal in your packet includes a scope of work that would include assistance with preparing a bid package, including a request for proposals for advertisement. We would be following a formal bid process. The Hill Studio would also assist the town in answering technical questions, engineering and architectural questions from any interested parties that would be bidding on the project. I'm holding a pre-bid conference preparing any addenda to the construction drawings and contract documents, and also assisting the town in negotiating with the lowest responsible bidder. That's the first step in construction of the project. If bids are not accepted and the town chooses not to move forward, then the rest of the proposal would be irrelevant. But should the town choose to accept a bid and move forward, Hill Studio would also be providing construction administration for the project. The total request is $17,500 for this assistance. The total for bid assistance, which is phase 1, is $3,000.
Thank you. I'll invite a motion from council on this matter. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the proposal from Hill Studio for bid assistant and construction administration on the Farmhouse Community Center project, and authorize the staff to advertise the project for bids, and that is contingent on it being phased should we not move forward. It's separately stated.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. For discussion, we'll start with you, Councilwoman Pittman, since you made the motion.
Yes, most of what we could say tonight about the actual project has been said kind of over and over, but the cost has been one of the most hotly debated items. And honestly, we've been having a debate based on what are estimates at a time when costs are rising and then fluctuating. So one of the things is we need to decide to move forward or not is to get some real-time numbers. And the only way we can do that is to get this project out to bid, and see what comes back. That would also be at the time that we could perhaps consider if there are suggestions for value engineering and doing that kind of thing. I think we have everything in place that we need to at least get the bids on the house. I know we're still working on the site plan, but I was a little surprised when I looked at it and I thought, wow, $3,000 just to, do the bids. And then I realized that now that we have funding, should we choose to spend it, there's a lot of extra compliance that goes into using the ARPA funding. I know that from any type of government funding, that, there's just lots of things. And all of that must be included in the bidding process so that we know that the people who are placing bids and potentially winning the bid are going to follow all of the rules. And the federal government is well known for all of its rules, and ARPA is federal dollars. So I guess I had to back off and say that I thought that that was more reasonable than I originally kind of did. I don't see any reason to continue to delay and debate because I think that having the real cost in hand is what we need to get kind of off our stuck spot. So that's why I'm approved.
Thank you. Councilman Sullivan.
One of the things that I have always asked has been about the cost. Those has been my primary concern, and I continue to ask questions of our architect. And finally, I got the name of some engineers that I need to talk to pursue trying to help get the cost down, even before it's bid. But I'm very much in favor of us getting to the point of bidding this project. And even though we're spending a little more money, I think it's money well spent if we're going to be able to bid it soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Kinnaman.
Yeah, getting the numbers is important. It's one of the biggest two concerns I have. I would like to make sure, Councilwoman Pittman included it in her motion, but in the wording of their memo, I want to make sure that it specifically, it says, Hill Studio will assist the town with negotiations. I'd like if there, make sure that it's very clear it's contingent upon us wanting to go to that phase.
Okay.
So that just doesn't make it look like it falls through to that phase.
Mr. Bruce, do you feel, I know you spent some time clarifying this with them, Do you feel any other clarification is necessary, or could that be done at the contract stage?
Well, yeah, I mean, they certainly understand that, but I agree that it's not, it makes sense to formally include that in their proposal, just so that there's no
So
question.
they understand that they're not going to get the thing unless we move forward.
Absolutely.
I realize that it may be there, but like, I think the wording would be nice if it's in whatever we do there.
I can do that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm fine.
Councilman McClellan, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
And what's yours? No, actually, I've been, of course, I'm glad we're at this point where we're moving forward here, getting the, getting the bidding process so that we find out what the real dollars are going to be, But, I am in favor of this project. We do need that, that extra space over there. The event center, I think, would be a real plus for us. Now, because, we're finding, I think, at least one major restaurant in our town is coming to, one of their event centers is coming to an end. Am I correct on that? I think I've heard that.
Joker's Room, yes.
Yeah, so that makes this good timing. Now, of course, it's still going to come to the point of how much is this going to cost? We all have our ideas, and but I think it is overall a worthy project to pursue. And it's in the historic district, and it's preserving, the farmhouse of that period when across the street used to be a tobacco farm. So I believe that I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
Thank you, and I want to thank Councilman Sullivan for all of his help with the engineering things, and just to clarify that should we get guidance back from the engineer and there's a consensus that we should change something, we can make an addendum to the bid package. And the other important point is that once we go through the bid process, if we do select someone, that person may also have really valuable on-the-ground guidance about HVAC and anything else, and there can be negotiations at that point to further refine the project. I also want to point out, I know it was in the Northwest Observer today that we have $455,000 budgeted for this. We've also received $380,000 in grant funding from the state and from the county, which makes a huge difference. We also found some, minor, the original estimate isn't perfect in any way because it was kind of an armchair,
It's an
up in
estimate.
Virginia sort of estimate. So I am excited to be able to move forward and see what folks here in this area, or whoever chooses to bid on this, what they actually bid. I've said this before, but I do hope that some local firms choose to bid on it, because I think that would work really well with the community nature of what we're trying to do here. So if there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the Hill Studio contract for bid process and construction and admin is approved. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item, Mr. Bruce.
Thank you. The last new business item is a proposed addendum to the town's contract with McGill Associates. As you know, we went through quite an exploration ordeal with finding water on the Heritage Farm Park property. It's caused several revisions to the plans. Now that we do have a primary well and an auxiliary well, the construction drawings will need to be refined and redrawn. Some new permits are required. This proposal is reflective of the additional work required from McGill. They have advised that after, and they have been working on some of these things, that it's approximately 8 weeks, 4 weeks of engineering work, and an additional 4 weeks of regulatory sign-off, and we'll be in a position to be able to bid the project. The total addendum to the contract with McGill is $22,400.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. Council, is there a motion on this matter?
I make a motion, we approve the agreement for engineering services changes.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion, council?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor, we'll proceed to a motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries, and that was easy. Thank you. The contract is approved, the addendum amendment. We'll now open the first of 2 periods for public comment. Speakers must come forward, provide their name and address for the record, and are asked to keep their comments under 3 minutes in length. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Mr. Mobley, come forward, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I am Derek Mobley. My address is 6012 Crystal Spring Court, Greensboro, North Carolina. So I appreciate you hosting me here tonight. So, I'll try to be brief with my remarks. My name is Derek Mobley. I am your District 3 Democratic candidate for County Commissioner here in Guilford County. Just a little bit about me. I've lived in the county for about 12 years. I have a background in the private sector in finance. I have a wife, 2 children, one of whom is in the public schools. And the 3 pillars to my campaign, the first is engaged and excited residents. So I believe in working from the grassroots up. I've tried to show that here by attending local meetings, being involved with local groups. At the county level, I really think we need to get people more engaged on our own boards and commissions. So we have a lot more vacancies than you all do, so you could probably set an example there. Broad economic opportunity is the second piece. So for that, I want to focus on our schools. As you know, we just had a school bond make it through the local government commission. We already know that money may not go as far as it was intended, so I want to make sure we're very careful with the design and planning so that our high school, for example, and the middle school gets the attention that it deserves, and we get the new high school that's planned in the Northwest. And also broadband access is important to me up here for rural areas. And then third, I know you guys have heard enough about water tonight, but I understand municipal water is important to you, and I think it's an important development priority for the county, so I want to be an ally for you there. And then third is safe and vibrant communities. For that, it's for me, it's pay for first responders and teachers. We've got to make sure that it's competitive. And so to do that, I do think we need to have a flat property tax rate. I think we can make that work. But, I understand, the tax rate has been an issue for a lot of residents. It did, the increase in property values has hurt. So, I want to keep it where it is. And, we could have some challenging times ahead. The economy slowing, sales taxes, revenues may go down. Property values could come under pressure. So, when that happens, I think you guys will be happy to have someone with a background in finance representing you. So, again, I appreciate your time. My name is Derek Mobley, your District 3 candidate for Guilford County Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak tonight? Seeing no one, we will move on to our monthly financial update, item 10 on our agenda, and I'll invite our finance officer, Mr. Sam Anders, to present.
You forgot the section about where this is the most interesting and titillating part of the entire evening.
I leave that to you.
Okay. All right. Everyone should have received a copy of the finance officer's report and the financial statements yesterday. We're holding, as normal, a strong balance sheet position. Total assets of $5.6 million, liabilities of $64,000, right at $65,000. Fund balance of a little over $5.5 million, but of that, 1.7 in actually about 2.1 million are reserved or committed for capital projects. So overall, we're in a very strong position. For the month, we had total revenues of $788,000. We spent $132,000 and added to the revenue base by $655,000. All that sounds really good until you consider that we will probably not have a lot coming in the last 6 months of the year. Right now, we've got $720,000 on deposit at Truist and $4.887 million at Bank of Oak Ridge. That's primarily in ICS money markets, and the ARP is segregated into a funding account. Behind that, you've got your Schedule 2 that shows all the items of income and expense, followed by the asset listings and, of course, the debt service. And I usually don't say much about the debt service. We make one payment a year, but we're right now half of the land acquisition up here for the phase of the park that's for the Heritage Park. Half of it is paid for right now. We've got 5 more payments. So we're we're right on the peak, and we're getting ready to go down on the backside of the mountain. For the month, we've had a wire transfer remitting property taxes of $34,813.73, motor vehicle tax of $10,180.26. Total funds come in was $44,993.99. That's as of 9/30 collection. That'll be on the October statements. Monthly, we had our normal sales tax, property tax, interest, Veterans Honor Green donations, other park revenues, miscellaneous revenues from sale surplus property, which was one of the well-used and well-worn mowers. Franchise tax came in, telecom, video programming, electric power, and pipe natural gas. All those are looking normal. That segment of our income is staying fairly stable. The video programming piece is going down. Electricity is staying strong. Telecom, a little bit of movement there. Pipe natural gas, a little movement there. It'll depend on how cold a winter as to how those taxes work out. Our investments, we're still monitoring those. As I had pointed out, we've got them primarily in two banks. We're monitoring rates, but right now it is not a really, really good rate structure for investments. We're happy to get what we can, and we're picking and choosing and getting the best rates that we can find among those. During the month, we supported the staff with grant compliance, been monitoring and working on the bid process that's being kind of on hold for the park. I've been in touch with both banks, with Truist, our local contact, Dave LeBlanc, and then the gentleman with Piedmont Federal, Ken Esposito. Both banks are ready. I have given them the revised timeline that Bill had, and we've given them an approximate date for when we will be looking for a rate cutoff. Both of them are ready to act within probably about 5 to 8 business days. So they're ready. They're ready to support us and to go through the process, because realistically, I do not anticipate us getting a rate quote that's going to be under 3%, which was the motion as approved by the council about a year ago, not quite a year ago. So with the rate structure movement, with the Fed raising rates, I don't think we're going to hit that spot. But historically speaking, is the rate going to be what we would love to see? Not what it was a year ago.
Yeah.
Will it be what we were doing when we built this building? We built the first phase of the park. I don't think we're going to be that high. So the good news is, historically speaking, it's still going to be a relatively good rate compared to our history ever since the town was founded. So I think it's going to be good. The point I take from this is our banks are ready and aggressively looking for our business. So we've got 2 good candidates there that are ready to roll. The work we've been doing is supporting the ARPA, the SCIF grants, the CIP process. As part of that, the auditors had moved us up on the audit schedule in anticipation of our needing to bid this project and needing the financials. We're anticipating probably having that audit potentially a week or better ahead of history. They purposely did that because if we have to go to the local government commission, there's some intricacies about when we would need the financials, and they, of course, need to be presented to town council. So they've tried to accommodate. The auditors have been really wonderful about trying to work with us on this whole process of going forward on the bid and going for approval to the LGC. Right now, we're looking at having the opinion probably in hand the last week of October. The first of that week is what I'm kind of looking at right now. In both cases, the banks are simply needing to update. The main thing they want to see is once y'all are presented with those audited financials, the next morning, I'm going to shoot a copy electronically to both banks. That's the main thing they need, and they're ready to roll. So they both emphasized that as soon as I get it in their hands, they'll be working on it. Even though we're going to be several weeks from when we have the rate cut off, they want to be ready to respond to our needs as quick as humanly possible. So I'm very hyped on the finance piece of this. This is much better than what we've gone through in the past. It kind of makes me feel good that people want to work with us and loan us money. We hadn't been there when we were a very young town, so it makes me feel good. But pretty much that's everything I've got right now. Overall, normal month.
Thank you, and thank you especially for looking ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I'd like to ask a question, and
Yes,
I know
ma'am.
it's speculative. When you're, because you've been working with the banks, and we're all seeing the interest rates in terms of borrowing money going up. Are we starting to see any movement in terms of what the banks are paying for funds on deposit?
Not really.
None.
Not
Okay.
really. As long as, I always quote it to people that, you know, banks handling money with the Fed, they buy money, they're a business. They buy money,
Yes.
they sell money. As long as the Fed rate is down around zero, they have no incentive to try to buy any money from us in the public.
Okay.
So it's just not a great environment. It kind of makes me, there was once, I'm an old cartoon, a Looney Tunes buff, and one time in one of the cartoon characters was trying to get Sylvester the cat to spend the money, and he said, nope, I'm going to put it in a government bond and get my 2%.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Now, I would love to see
Yes.
2%.
2% on what we've got in the
Yeah,
bank
that
right now would be
cartoon was
great.
made in the late 40s or mid 40s, actually, because it was during World War II, and I thought, 2% was just a joke. But now, yeah, we're looking at one of the money market accounts. A standard money market rate I looked at the other day is 0.01.
Oh, my God.
So, but,
I have a question.
we're looking, and there again, when the auditors have been in touch with us and been out, I bounced ideas off. Are you seeing this anywhere else? Are you seeing other things that we could try to do? And they're not seeing anybody really getting any better rate of return in any fashion.
Okay.
I just was curious, we had given you a range of interest rates that we would be okay with.
Yes, sir.
With it. Do you need us to adjust that now or next month, or when do we need to adjust that for you so that you have some flexibility so you don't have to keep coming back to us?
What I would say is we have the time, because right now, I don't know, the rate was to get the best possible rate under 3%. Right now, I don't think we're going to hit that. I feel very certain.
I understand that.
Yeah. What I would recommend would be when we get to the bid process, I will have at that time, I can get an approximation, because once the bid process and we're getting ready to bid open, we will be within about a 30-day window. I think at that point, I can probably get a good faith estimate
Okay,
and be able to.
so we're not cramping your style right now by not giving you some flexibility? Okay.
No, I'm right now, we're still just gathering and monitoring and watching.
I just want to make sure we're not the holdup.
Oh, no, y'all are not. But anything, of course, as with everything financial, my desires, all I do is recommend it goes through y'all.
Understand.
Our system here is much more restrictive, and I like it that way.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be the one signing off on borrowing millions of dollars. Not that I would go crazy and do that, but it's just, y'all are publicly elected. We all answer to the public. And I want, before any major decision like this is made, it needs to have all five of y'all in agreement. The whole team needs to be in agreement on the best course and best number. And whether we can, and I think we'll be able to foot the bill with no problem. It's just how low a rate we can get.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Council, is there a motion to accept the financial report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the financial report as presented by our Chief Financial Officer.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries, and the report is approved. Thank you so much. We appreciate all that you're doing for us. We'll now move to item 11, committee reports, and I'll invite brief reports of no more than 3 minutes from our boards and committees. We'll start with Planning and Zoning, but they did not meet, so we will go on to Mountains to Sea Trail.
Planning, zoning
Oh.
is.
Planning and zoning.
They're here.
Planning, zoning is.
Yes. Okay, we have Mr. Kimmel here from Mountains to Sea Trail.
Good evening. I'm Mike Kimmel, 5601 Tanyard Court. Heritage Day was a great day for us. We had a great turnout that came to visit our booth. We enjoyed handing out hiking poles. We had 60 bamboo hiking poles, and all of those were handed out to kids and adults by noon on that day. And I'd like to thank Sean he printed this beautiful topo map of the Headwaters Trail. And we had not had a map before showing all the work we've done until that map. And so we really appreciate what he did. What we're real excited about is we're ready to go east. We've established our first work day, October the 22nd, will be our first work day on the east side of Oak Ridge. You know, our objective is to connect Highway 150 all the way to Brookbank. And then if you look just a little bit further past Brookbank is Benera Farm. And if you look a little, then you have Summerfield. So we are ready, and we're ready to go. So on the 22nd of October, we'll be having our first work day. And by the way, over 100 volunteers. I don't have the exact number, but over 100 volunteers have worked this year on trails in Oak Ridge, both near and far. We have well over 1,000 volunteer hours on trails in Oak Ridge. And that's amazing when you think about volunteer work, getting out there and building bridges and making trails. So we're real excited. We have a great group. We have great volunteers everywhere that come to help us. We're real excited to get started in the east. And finally, we're going to have an opening ceremony for the Headwaters Trail. And that will be the 21st of October at 2 o'clock. We've got the executive director of the Friends of the Mountain to Sea Trail coming, Brent Lawrence, and he will be our keynote speaker. We'll be also offering not only the ceremony, but we'll be offering guided hikes along the Headwaters Trail after the ceremony. We'll be meeting up at the main park, shelter number 2 initially, and we'll have shuttle transportation to get you down to the head trail at Limel Road. So we are real excited about that as well. Do I have any questions?
I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you very much, and thank you guys for all your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Conservation Easement Committee did not meet this month, so we'll move on to special events. Ms. Domchowski, come on down.
Patty Domchowski, 7320 Hidden View Drive. I'd like to thank the council for our matching for this quarter. We did a great job. $11,000 we raised in the third quarter. We're getting closer, we're inching closer. I'd like to thank Sandra, because Sandra works with me and we do checks and balances just to make sure that everything is included that was handed into the township gets onto the funds that are there. So thank you to Sandra. Our committee had 2 great days at Ridge Fest. We raised over $2,300 at the food trailer. We, as many folks in the community, were very disappointed that we weren't able to do Saturday to make the additional money. Many thanks to our committee members Sue Madison and Barb Engel for coordinating this wonderful event, and for all the folks that helped with the event. Special shout out to our committee member Amy for the excellent grill work that she did with all the hamburgers and hot dogs. We also had a great time at Heritage Day this year. We had 19 pound cakes that were submitted to our bake contest. Thanks to Gigi Williams in the back and Susie Westmoreland for volunteering to be judges. They did a great job. Our 3 winners were Joe Brown from Greensboro, Cassandra Thacker from Oak Ridge, and our own Martha Pittman with her Granny's Recipe, won 3rd place. We made almost $700 from the sale of the slices and the cakes, and were able to give some of the leftover cakes to our fire department. Many thanks to Sandra, Annette, and Martha for organizing a terrific day. Our Veterans Day ceremony is set for Friday, November 11th at 10 a.m. in the Park Amphitheater. We will have the Central Baptist Band playing, the Scouts and Cub Scouts will be there, and 2 terrific speakers, Heather and Billy Martin. Both have solid military backgrounds that they will share with us. Our Light of the Night folks have been hard at work with our Vice Chair, Ben Walraven, purchasing the additional luminaries and coordinating a volunteer afternoon to put them all together. Thanks to all the volunteers that showed up. We have over, again, 1,300 luminaries. Barb Engel and Sue Madison continue to get craft and food vendors to participate. Right now, we have 20 craft vendors, and we have 8 food vendors. So I think we're going to have a little bit of everything out there for everybody. We've coordinated again with the fire department to have Santa arrive at the fire truck to make his way to the station to meet all the kids. We'll have all sorts of activities during the day, including our Grinch tractor ride, and we just heard from the Oak Ridge Elementary School that the choir, the children's choir, will be there at the lighting of the tree. We have additional activities this year, including the fireworks that were left over from Ridge Fest at the end of the night. So this is going to be a really special day for our community. I'm going to be speaking to the Women's Club this Monday, and then to the Lions Club next in November on the Veterans Honor Green to hopefully do some more fundraising. And lastly, a reminder that Nick Jameson will be having his Scout Project. It's a 5K in the park. It'll be next Saturday with all profits going to the Veterans Fund. So please come out and join this worthwhile project. It is a walk-run 5K, so if you would like to just walk, you could do that too. Any questions?
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Parks and Rec, I know they didn't meet, but there's some upcoming events. Mr. Browning.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and everyone. My name is John Browning. I live at 8024 Linville Road. Again, as the mayor said, we had no agenda items, so we did not have a meeting for September, but I did want to highlight and notify and invite everybody to our last Music in the Park. The Music in the Park series have been a really successful events this year. The weather was most cooperative, and it's been a really good year. So we have our last this coming Saturday, the 8th, 2 bands, Twin County Ramblers and the Robertson Boys. Again, the first band is at 7:30, and the second band is, first band is 5:30 to 7:30, and then 7:30 to 9 for the last band. Apparently we have a time change, so that's kind of why we tweaked our time a little bit. But again, I just want to invite and encourage everybody to come out. It's our last one for the night, and we're looking forward to a bigger and better 2023 for the Music in the Park. But as always, these events promise to be the best night ever. So look forward to seeing everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. It's going to be fun. Finance Committee didn't meet. Water Advisory, we've already heard from them. And so we'll move on to Historic Preservation Commission. Ms. Schoenfeld.
Good evening. I'm Debbie Schoenfeld. I live at 8501 San Siro Farm Court. Nice to be here. It's been a while. We haven't met for a regularly scheduled meeting because we haven't had one scheduled for about 3 months. But we are in the process of still working on our book. The Historic Properties of Oak Ridge Book Committee has determined that additional edits and reviews above what we had anticipated in July will be necessary. The decision to push the schedule out further, it could push it out further, although we're still hoping to track with the initial schedule. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we're going to try. The Heritage Day event, like everybody says, was a success. We had Denise Sachs, Courtney Bimbo Harton, and Barbara Engel help at the HPC booth. Courtney brought and displayed historic bimbo information and items, and Barbara brought and displayed items that Frank Engel and the Old North State Detectorists Club found on several Oak Ridge's historic properties. And our goal at the event was to demonstrate to the community HPC's role in Oak Ridge. And we had an example of the illustrated guidelines there, standards. They're standards now, not guidelines. And we encouraged visitors to visit the booth because we gave away koozies. And everybody loved those. And the attendees seemed to enjoy it and found it interesting. Any questions?
I'm a member of Preservation Oak Ridge, and we had our meeting last night, and their interest, AI Church is starting to settle down a bit. There's still lots to do with it, but they're interested in talking with the HPC about things that they might be able to help with, or just learning more about what's going on in town, because, you know, the name of it is Preservation Oak Ridge, so like I said, they're looking beyond just the AI Church now. They are talking to the mill, but like I said, they'd be very interested in maybe having you attend one of their meetings and talk to them about just things in general and kind of understand what things they may be able to help with.
Yeah, sure, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Just let me know.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll share the meeting announcements with you
Yeah.
so that you can come.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to our community organization reports, and we'll start with the Oak Ridge Youth Association. Hey, Randy, Mr. Collins.
Randy Collins, 4514 Peoples Road. Follow up on the Ridge Fest. We had a record-setting year on Thursday night. We went from like 135 tickets. Kind of had a goal of getting 150, but we ended up with 220 tickets sold that first night to the ORY group. It is fall time. I'm glad that it's not going summer to winter. We actually got a little fall in here. A little bit cooler out there than it is in here tonight, so that's good. Our fall leagues are going well. This year, coaches, I don't know if you have an idea how many coaches we have just in the fall league this year, spread out across all the sports, but it's 175 volunteers that are coaching. I'll leak a little bit of news that we're going to do something for those coaches this year. We hope you guys will join us in the event. That's about all I can say at this time about it. We have the Halloween Terror Trail coming up, so we'd definitely love to have you guys come through that. That's October 21st, 22nd, 28th, and 29th, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. And all the money's going to go to the backpack ministry. So that's a great thing our youth are doing. So I hope the town will support that. Last but not least, we finished up that self-defense course we talked about earlier a couple months ago with the middle school and high school girls. We actually had 50 ladies that completed that, and so that was a great thing. That's about all I have, unless you've got something else for me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, do we have anyone here from the military academy? Haven't seen anybody. And the elementary school, I know they couldn't be here, but they emailed a report to council, so we were able to hear a little bit about what's going on. So now we will move on to item 13, public comments. Is there anyone who wishes to speak during this second period of public comments? Okay, seeing no one, we will move on to council comments. And we'll start with Councilman Sullivan.
Thank you. A busy evening for us. I look at the agenda and the bulk of our time, a great majority of our time, was spent on action items involving construction. From our Veterans Memorial to the parks to water to the Redmond House. There's a lot going on here. And I think we should all be just very proud to be part of a community that is so vital and so thriving and striving in so many different ways to make things better in Oak Ridge. We couldn't do that without all of our volunteers. I'm impressed by the number of coaches you've got, Randy. That's terrific. And one other note, nobody likes power outages and trees down across the roads and everything else, but I never failed to be impressed by our first responders, whether it's the fire department, the sheriff's department, the EMTs. Again, we're very fortunate to have these folks working for us and serving us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Pittman.
Yes, I actually have several things I'd like to say, but so I'll choose one. We've been here a while. When we think about our volunteers, and I look out, and many of you are volunteers, and then we get our committee reports, and we're talking about the official things that are being accomplished and the work that's being done in our committees. But there's a lot of work that's going on outside of those committee meetings, outside of scheduled work days. The Heritage Day Committee has been one of the most fun and best working groups I've been. It's not an official committee that's on our list or associated with any particular official committee. So there's a lot of work that goes on that doesn't get recognized. And one of the things that comes to mind is Mike mentioned the volunteer hours. The MST does track the volunteer hours on our official work days, and of the members that are doing the reporting, they keep up with their extra hours. But we had on the Headwaters Trail during the dates from September 2019 until recently, I believe, Mike, it was somewhere around 1,450, which at the going rate that the state will use and the reason they do it is like the Friends of the MST, when they're looking at grants, a lot of times the matching is volunteer hours and labor. And even a few years ago, they were counting that at $21 an hour. So you're talking about over $30,000 worth of labor has been completed. And we know that that's not complete, because I saw a woman the other night and I asked her something and she said, well, you know, he goes out every Sunday morning and works. You know, in other words, there's a lot of people that are just seeing the need. And I know I've seen Mike out there and he just knows that something needs to be done. So he goes and does it. So I'd like to thank the people who do it outside of their official times and do it. Today was a good example. By happenstance, luck, or divine intervention, on Labor Day, I was out hiking with a through hiker a completer who completed in 2018. And she wanted to see the parts of Oak Ridge Trail that are now off trail, because when she completed, it was all on the road. So I said, sure, I'd love to host you, and we'll go out for a guided hike. And when we came out at Goodwill Church Road, because we went from Linville to Goodwill, there was a couple standing there, and Mary, the lady I was hiking with, had on her MST hat, and she looked over and she said, we're here kind of scouting for an MST field trip. Would either of you know anything about the MST? And I'm sure by the time we got through with her, she was wishing she hadn't asked. But it turns out that the members of the Southwest Guilford Women's Club, and she's one of their activity directors, the state president of the Federation of Women's Clubs, I don't know if I say it right, her project, her presidential project, is the MST. And so this morning, Ann Steele, the co-chair of the MST committee, and I met out at Goodwill Church Road and met a group of ladies, both from the Southwest Guilford Women's Club and the Greensboro Women's Club, and I talked with them a little while, and then Ann took them on a fully guided hike. So when we come up and we give our committee reports, I want everybody to know that we know how much more work is going in that's unofficial, but it is seen, is acknowledged, and it's appreciated.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Kinnaman.
I'll just add a little bit to the MST, and then I got a couple of things. But I'm always amazed when I go out for a work day. There's at least one or two people that come from far away. Mm-hmm. So that's how much people value the MST. We have people from Reedsville. I think somebody was down near Charlotte last time. So it's amazing. So that's how much people value the MST. So the story she's talking about, we're on the map because of our trails, and the fact that you're adding some more trails is just going to add to that. As a member of Lions Club, I need to thank everybody that helped us out for two events. The golf tournament we held, we raised approximately $8,000, if I got the numbers right, and that goes back into the community. We help people that need help with getting eyeglasses, eye exams, hearing aids, and people that just need general help. So if any time you know of someone that's having a little trouble getting the money together to get an eye exam or a hearing exam or eyeglasses, send them to the Lions Club. Heritage Day, we had a great time. We sold out of our hot dogs. So that's another thing that we thank you guys for, buying our hot dogs. If you're not registered to vote, please make sure you register. I'm not going to tell you how to vote from up here, but if you're not registered to vote, please register to vote. And if you are registered to vote, please don't forget to vote. We're going to be an early voting site here, but you can also vote on voting day. And as always, blood. United Methodist Church is having blood drive on Monday. I understand that they finally are allowed to have home-baked goods, so there'll be some home-baked goods there for me there, plus Bob Yarbrough, he also supplies some baked goods. Maybe you can make your pound cake there, Martha, for Monday. They'd probably love that. But if you can donate blood, please do. If you know someone that can donate blood, please encourage them to donate blood. Like I said, unfortunately, I can't donate anymore, but if you can donate my place, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wi-Fi is coming. Wi-Fi is all set. We're going to have an announcement about it, but it's up and running in the park right now, but we'll have some more details for you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilman McClellan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Folks, thanks so much for coming out tonight. Tonight, we did accomplish some great things. We've taken a great step forward in water, particularly fire suppression, the first step, and the engineering study. Now, this isn't going to be overnight. I suspect, what do you think, Spencer, a couple of years before we see the tank? And at least. So we're moving forward. This was a phenomenal night for our citizens, because Oak Ridge won, and that's how I look at it. Also, I want to thank the folks that are on the volunteers. They've done a fabulous job. MST, Heritage Day folks, and we're seeing this across the line. We couldn't do half of the stuff that we do without our volunteers, and so we are just very proud. It's one of those things that makes you proud that you live here in Oak Ridge. So anyway, that's all I've got to say, and once again, thanks for coming.
Thank you. And I want to thank our scouts for attending. It's been a pleasure for me to get a little bit involved with the scouts here, and I know I'm going to be doing a whole month of merit badge sessions, so wish me luck, but I know it's going to be fun. And one of the things I spoke to the scouts about a couple of weeks ago was, what citizenship and voting is, at the core of our citizenship. So I encourage you to early register, as Jim said, early vote, and get out there and help the campaigns you believe in. Do your research first, of course, but get out and help. Another exciting thing that's happened just this week, although we're still working out the details, I can't help but say something about it. And it's because of Pastor Mike Carr. I had some conversations with him, and in principle, the trustees and Pastor Mike Carr, who gave our invocation from Oak Ridge United Methodist Church, have agreed to be an alternate bad weather site for our Music in the Park events throughout next season. So that means if we get rained out, we get to go to their beautiful Family Life Center, and we're working out the details, but it looks really promising, and I think the Music in the Park Committee is excited about it too. To have an indoor location like that will just mean we don't have to cancel Music in the Park events. And this has been a busy month. You've heard a lot about it. I've been busy. I've been getting out there a lot. I went to a North Carolina Lions meeting. I've been part of a Education Fellows program, and everywhere I go, and I've talked to a lot of our representatives, everywhere I go I talk about Oak Ridge, and everybody's always excited to hear what we're doing. So with no more ado, we will invite a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries, and we are adjourned.